The night New York forgot how to breathe began with a single bullet. A man walked through the rain, past the neon hum of a dying city, and vanished before the echo faded. No one saw his face. No one even knew his name. But every Mafia family in America had used his trigger finger. They called him the Broker, a ghost who sold silence for a price. Tonight, he was supposed to kill a man who didn't exist. What if the assassin wasn't hunting his target, but being hunted himself? What if the real job wasn't about blood, but betrayal? Somewhere between the raindrops, the broker realized the hit had been paid for was a setup, and when the rain stopped, the city would never be the same again. Norwjuas is Shantwarf, in Shamorti and Kishiniki. What in your brain? Endow. Igen Gadabow, Analer CI. By sunrise, the city's rumor mills were already spinning. A high-ranking consigliere had been shot outside his mistress' apartment. Clean, quiet, professional. The kind of job only one man could pull off. Yet something was wrong. The payout hadn't arrived. The contact line was dead. And buried deep within a mob-controlled data server, Vince found his own alias marked terminated. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the next name on the list. Rorwar Mujtiki. He was the next name on the list. Every assassin fears one thing: being erased by the same hand that once paid him. Vince checked his safe house cameras, but the feeds were already looping. Someone had cloned his identity, used his name on a job he didn't take. Now, 5 Mafia families were convinced the broker had betrayed them all. In a world where loyalty is currency, Vince had just gone bankrupt. He needed answers fast. His only lead, a woman named Isabella. Once his informant, now working for the Leone family. She was the kind of person who traded secrets like gold. And Vince knew she wouldn't talk easily. But he also knew her weakness. The truth she couldn't afford to remember. Their eyes met. Past lovers, now enemies drawn into the same deadly orbit. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Neither should you," he replied. Before she could answer, the windows shattered. Automatic fire tore through the room. Someone had tracked him down. Vince grabbed Isabella's arm and dove behind the counter. Glass rained over them as chaos erupted. Somewhere outside, an engine roared and vanished into the night. The ghost had been found. Before he was the broker, he was just another street kid, lost between loyalty and survival. The Bronx, 1989, a place where bullets were cheaper than bread. Vince learned early that power didn't come from muscle, but from silence. The first time he pulled a trigger, he didn't do it for money. He did it because someone told him he couldn't. And from that moment, the city stopped being his home. It became his hunting ground. The man who found him that night wasn't a cop. He was a soldier. Don Salvatore Leone saw in Vince something rare: the will to kill without hesitation, and the sense to keep his mouth shut. Under Salvatore's wing, Vince learned discipline, deception, and death. The family didn't make him a killer. They just gave him purpose. His first official hit was a test. A rival soldier cornered in a rundown apartment. No backup, no second chances. Vince pulled the trigger without blinking. But what stayed with him wasn't the blood. It was the silence afterward. That silence became his addiction. He started chasing it, job after job, until killing felt like breathing. By his mid-20s, he wasn't just a hitman. He was a ghost with a Rolodex of corpses. From Chicago docks to Miami penthouses, every crime family wanted him. He moved under false names, burned through passports, and erased anyone who knew too much. But power breeds paranoia, and Vince began to wonder. What happens to the man who knows every secret worth killing for? He thought he'd buried his past for good, until he met Isabella Rossi. She wasn't like the others. She asked questions no one dared ask, and when she looked at him, he felt seen, not feared. But love has no place in a life built on secrets. The day she found out who he really was, she didn't scream. She just walked away. And that silence, colder than death, followed him for years. By the time the millennium hit, the broker wasn't a rumor anymore. He was a business model. Every crime family in America had his number, but none knew his face. He played them all, one against the other, building an empire out of their fear. Every deal, every hit, every whispered alliance went through him. But the moment you become the bridge between enemies, you also become the battlefield. Meetings turned into power plays. Every boss wanted more territory, more blood. Vince gave them both, but quietly. He arranged their wars without them, realizing they were his puppets. Yet one man refused to play his game. Luca Marino, a young Miami enforcer who didn't believe in ghosts. Luca wanted proof that the broker was real, and in his hunt for the truth, he would light the fuse that burned the underworld down. When Luca's men started asking questions, families grew suspicious. Someone was leaking names, routes, money trails to keep control. Vince had to make an example. He sent Luca a message written in blood. The price of curiosity. The broker didn't warn people twice. But the problem with being everywhere is that you can't hide forever. The death of Don Leon's heir sent shockwaves across the country. 5 bosses sat down for the first time in years, and each accused the other of betrayal. Behind every argument was one name whispered like a curse. The broker. The man no one had ever seen had just become the most wanted target in America. As chaos erupted, Vince disappeared again, one step ahead of the storm he created. But for the first time, he wasn't smiling. Someone else was pulling strings now, turning his system against him. Files were leaking, payments vanishing, and one encrypted name kept showing up in his network: Carla Moreno, an ex-FBI profiler who once tracked him and vanished. The game he'd mastered was now being played against him. When the walls closed in, Vince did the one thing no assassin should ever do. He called the FBI. The deal was simple: names for freedom. But nothing in his world was ever simple. Every file he handed over made him richer and more hunted. He wasn't switching sides, he was building a new one, a kingdom made of secrets. But with every whisper he traded, the line between survival and suicide blurred a little more. Agent Reed promised protection. But protection from the Mafia was a myth. One leak, one wrong whisper, and Vince would be a corpse before sunrise. Still, he couldn't stop. Each secret he sold brought him closer to something he'd long buried: the truth about who ordered his first kill. And maybe, just maybe, the name that ruined his life was hidden somewhere inside the FBI's own file. Vince fed the Bureau names, rivals, traffickers, killers, and watched as entire families fell overnight. To the FBI, he was a miracle. To the Mafia, he was a ghost gone rogue. Yet, one thing haunted him more than their wrath. Isabella's name had resurfaced. Someone inside the Bureau had her under surveillance. The same woman who once saved him was now bait in a trap meant for him. Vince broke every rule of survival that night. He infiltrated the hotel where Isabella was held, not as an assassin, but as a man trying to undo a sin. What he didn't know was that Agent Reed had sold him out. Both sides wanted the same prize, the broker. And the moment Vince reached Isabella's door, he saw it. The red laser dot tracing her chest. He wasn't saving her. He was walking into an execution. The shot came from behind him, not the sniper, Reed. The agent had pulled the trigger, silencing the hitman and protecting his own cover. Vince staggered, blood soaking his coat, but he didn't fall. He smiled instead. "You think you own my story?" he whispered. "I wrote it." Then he vanished into the elevator shaft as alarms blared and smoke filled the corridor. The FBI thought I'd killed the broker, but all they'd done was set him free. The next morning, America woke to chaos. Half the Mafia hierarchy had vanished overnight, either arrested, executed, or running for their lives. Hidden bank accounts were drained, warehouses raided, and secret meeting spots burned to ash. No one knew who did it, but in the underworld, one name echoed like a curse and a prophecy: the broker. The man every family once trusted had just dismantled them all. From New York to Chicago, Miami to Vegas, the streets ran red. Families turned on each other. Old alliances shattered overnight. Vince didn't have to pull the trigger anymore. He just had to wait. But power, once unleashed, doesn't go quietly. Every surviving boss now had one mission: find the man who broke the code and erase him from history. Vince went underground again, but this time he wasn't hiding. He was hunting. One by one, he erased the men who had profited from his silence. Each hit was cleaner, colder, more deliberate. But beneath the precision was something darker, a man avenging his own past. The broker wasn't killing for business anymore. He was cleaning his soul. While bodies piled up, Carla Moreno finally connected the dots. The FBI files Vince had leaked weren't random. They were calculated. Each takedown cleared his path to something bigger: total control of the American underworld. But what she didn't know was that Agent Reed wasn't dead, and he wanted his empire back. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The final domino fell in a storm of gunfire on the Brooklyn Bridge. Mob soldiers, rogue agents, and hired assassins clashed under flashing police sirens. In the chaos, Vince stood at the center, unarmed, watching both sides destroy each other. When the smoke cleared, the families were gone, the Bureau disgraced, and Vince vanished once again. No one saw him die. No one ever does. But every rumor whispered the same thing. The broker didn't disappear. He simply became the system he once served. Months passed, but the silence after the war was heavier than gunfire. The broker had vanished into myth until bodies began to surface again. Not soldiers, not bosses, informants, anyone who knew his true name. Each kill was surgical, untraceable. The FBI called it revenge, but Carla Moreno knew better. Vince wasn't hiding. He was erasing his past, one corpse at a time. The hunt turned personal. Carla had spent years chasing his shadow, but now she was the only one left alive who could expose him. She wasn't driven by justice anymore. It was something deeper: guilt. She'd once helped him escape. Now she had to finish what she started. And deep down, she feared that when she found him, she wouldn't pull the trigger. Agent Reed resurfaced like a ghost that refused to die. Scarred, limping, but alive. He wanted one thing: to expose Vince and reclaim his lost empire. But Reed underestimated the man had created. The broker no longer played for sides. He played for endings. And in the shadows of a ruined city, Master and Monster prepared to meet one last time. The showdown wasn't a shootout. It was a confession. Vince cornered Reed, disarmed him, and asked a single question. "Who ordered my first hit?" Reed's silence said everything. The FBI had created him, trained him, and unleashed him, not to fight crime, but to control it. Vince didn't kill him right away. He made him watch as the files that built the Bureau's secret empire burned to ash. When Carla finally found him, Vince was already bleeding, shot, exhausted, but alive. She aimed her gun, hands trembling. "It ends here," she said. He nodded. "It already has." Before she could fire, he dropped a USB drive at her feet. "The truth," he whispered, "is worse than me." Then he stepped backward into the flames. The building collapsed seconds later, swallowing the broker once and for all. But when Carla opened the drive, she realized he hadn't just destroyed the Mafia. He'd exposed the entire government network that kept them alive. The world thought the broker was dead, the Mafia gone, the Bureau disgraced. But death is just another form of invisibility. Months after the fire, whispers emerged of a man moving across Europe, Africa, and Asia. leaving chaos in his wake. Each whisper carried the same question. Had he returned to kill again, or was this the work of a legend that refused to die? The truth was far darker and far more calculated. The USB Carla found revealed every secret, every Mafia alliance, every corrupt official, every hit Vince had ever pulled. But it also revealed the final truth. The broker had never truly worked for the FBI. He had orchestrated the entire collapse from the start, feeding only false trails. He didn't betray the Mafia families for money. He betrayed them for justice, his own twisted form of justice. The Underworld was his chessboard, and he was the king no one could touch. Vince watched the chaos unfold from afar. Every empire that thrived on fear had collapsed. Governments were exposed. Mafias were fractured. And yet, no one knew his face, his name, or his true motive. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a villain. He was the reckoning everyone deserved, and no one survived to question it. The world scrambled to interpret the chaos, to assign blame, to create heroes and villains. But there was only one truth. The broker had rewritten history. Without a single camera to record him, without a witness to testify, he had taken revenge for himself, for the innocent, and for the countless lives consumed by greed and betrayal. He had become the ghost that could never be caught. In the end, Carla understood the final lesson. Power is fleeting. Trust is a currency no one can print. And legends live forever in the silence between the gunshot and the echo. The broker was gone, yes, but his shadow stretched across every city, every family, every secret. The man who worked for all, betrayed none, and destroyed all. He was still out there, and the world would never see him coming.